Hi everybody, welcome to the Chat and Vibe series for the Vitality Festival. We're very excited today to welcome Victor Perton onto our program, who is the king of optimism, and we love hearing all about everything you've got to say. Welcome today, Victor. How's your day going?
Oh, Tanya, it's superb. And all the better for catching up with you. I just love what you're doing with this Vitality Festival. It's what people need coming through COVID, pursuing what we call a better normal. So all strength to your arm. So I'm deeply honoured and impassioned by being a part of what you've achieved.
Thanks, Victor. Yeah, we're very excited. The Vitality Festival starts on the 31st of October. It runs for 9 days. It is a free health and wellbeing festival for all frontliners and anybody else who really needs a little bit of empowering and energising and optimism in their lives. So we'd love you to join us. The links are below. But over to you, Victor. Tell us a little bit about how you came to doing what you're doing now.
So I had a really interesting and vibrant working life all my life. So I was a barrister, then I was a member of state parliament, and in a time of great vibrancy. Young people won't remember a time before the internet, but at the beginning of the internet, to make sense of it and to harness it for the community. And what we were doing, Bill Gates wrote about in Business at the Speed of Thought. We were best in the world. And then, look, I'd had enough of politics and retired from politics, and then had the good fortune to be asked by the other side of politics to be Victoria's Commissioner to the Americas. And everywhere I went in North and South America, there was this astonishing positive stereotype of Australians. And it made my work easy. The chairman of Caterpillar said, "Vic, you Aussies remind me of the Americans of 100 years ago. Nothing is impossible." Secretary General of the Rio Olympics said, "Look, I want an Olympic Games as good as Sydney, a legacy as good as Melbourne 56. So it made my work relatively easy to have this positive stereotype. And then I had an even more interesting experience, which was senior advisor to the Australian G20 presidency. And at that super elite level of finance ministers, central bank governors, even heads of state, it was exactly the same. This complete trust in you because you were an Australian. And then I came back to Melbourne, and it was like I was on another planet. The only people who didn't get the strength of Australian leadership were Australians themselves. So rather than complain about the complainers, I set up the Australian Leadership Project, and we interviewed 2,500 people on the qualities of Australian leadership. And those qualities, as you exemplify and your team exemplifies, it's no bullshit plain speaking. It's egalitarianism. We talk to the cleaner the same way we talk to the chairman. Our prime minister sits in the front seat of the car. And then self-effacing humour. We take our work seriously, but we laugh at ourselves. So even at the end of that 2,500 interviews, I was still bewildered by the negativity. And my eureka moment came at the Global Integrity Summit in 2017. The leadership is actually pretty good. That's why Australians live so well. The problem is the fog of pessimism. And so since 2017, working with an entire movement of people now in 56 countries, we are creating beacons, empowering people to be infectiously optimistic leaders, to shine a light through the fog of pessimism.
Incredible, incredible. And I remember when we first had our initial chat, you were telling me why you were so passionate about optimism, and you felt that it was such a necessary seed for a lot of people to have inside their minds and inside their beings. Could you comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Well, it's the science now. What is extraordinary is that the science now shows that the key to living a long and healthy life is not genetics, it's not geography, it's not income, it's the trait of optimism. And Stanford University, Harvard, Oxford, the American military, Boston University, huge reports now say that optimism is the key indicator that you're going to live a long and healthy life. And the American College of Cardiology, the Mount Sinai medical system, finding that the key indicator for a healthy heart is optimism. The key indicator of recovery from a heart attack or angina is optimism. Sleep. The Vienna School of Medicine produced a report just 4 weeks ago now, and they found that an optimist has about 1/7 the incidence of sleep abnormality, right? The optimist goes to bed and sleeps. The other two findings they made were quite interesting. One is that, of course, sleep helps your optimism. So, you know, the optimist is a better sleeper. Sleep makes you a better optimist. But the other one they found was that there's a methodology called My Best Self, which is a type of sort of mind trick where you daydream, in a sense, about, you know, what you're going to look like in a year or 5 years or 10 years. But I'm diverting now. So the why of optimism is your personal health, the health of those around you. Dominic Barton of McKinsey, Jeremy Johnson of the Australian Chamber of Commerce, Iger, the former head of Disney, all say that the key trait of the contemporary modern leader is infectious optimism, not the man standing at the podium, pounding the podium. It's the person who can unlock the optimism in the team around them. And as you well know, you can't be a strategist unless you're an optimist. You can't be an innovator unless you're an optimist. You can't be an entrepreneur unless you're an optimist. But the good thing is, and that's why we're working together and why, you know, I'm proud to be a part of your program, is that optimism can be learned. Only 25% of your optimism is genetic. The rest of it is a choice. It's a mindset, and it's, you know, things like meditation. And you've got fantastic meditators and meditation programs in your festival. You know, the scientific evidence now says if you meditate, you actually thicken the frontal portion of the brain, therefore reinforcing joy and happiness. And just simple things like you're doing now. You know, smile like an optimist, laugh like an optimist, greet people like an optimist. These are the secrets to consistently making yourself more optimistic and helping those around you to be more infectiously optimistic too.
And I think, you know, a lot of the frontliners who will be part of this program, a lot of them have to be optimistic. You know, they're the front people really who are helping people in the hospitals, or they might even be the police who are roaming around having to instill laws. And, you know, it's the teachers. And it's really interesting because the face of or the mask that somebody wears and how they portray themselves either has the ability to lift somebody up who's in front of them, or really to dampen the way they feel. So, you know, it's contagious optimism. And I think it's a good virus that we want to spread instead of the one that's out there at the moment.
No, exactly. But pessimism too is also contagious. And what we've got is, through no fault of anyone in particular, the news has converted from when I was young in the 1970s, where the news was roughly 50-50 good, bad, to the contemporary news where it's all bad. You know, you get the one fluffy animal story after the weather, or, you know, the rescued whale, or the crocodile eggs or whatever. But there's no release, there's no relief from the negativity. So, you know, if you're doing a tough job like a policeman, where, you know, you are generally dealing with people who are breaking the law, or people complaining about someone breaking the law, or if you're an ambulance driver and you're responding to emergencies and the most awful accidents. Now, the great thing about all of them is that they believe they can make a difference. But we and the rest of the community have to lift them just with a smile, or in particular, a thank you. One of the things, my current irritation, if I have one, Tanya, is all these exercises around gratitude. And we're teaching people to have gratitude journals and everything. But what's the point of writing it in a diary and not actually thanking someone? So what I love about what you and your team are doing is we're actually saying thank you. to the frontline workers, and what can we do to help you? And that's your stroke of genius, right? It's beyond a gratitude journal. It's beyond writing a gratitude book. It's saying thank you and what can we do to help?
Yeah. And it's amazing because really we've got 70 optimistic leaders in the health and wellness field who have all volunteered their time to be like leaders, to be that beacon like you were talking about, to help empower other people so that they can have examples of what it's like to be optimistic, what it's like to be motivated. And, you know, I think part of that is education, because some people, like you were saying, were born optimistic, and a lot of other people need to learn to be optimistic. So what would you say? Because I know there's a lot of people at the moment who have, you know, got a lot of fear in their life, and they're very pessimistic really about what's going on in the world. You know, for these people who are feeling overwhelmed, what is like one or two little strategies you would want to share with them to help them turn their mindset into a positive one?
The one we do is, in fact, to ask people what makes you optimistic. And we do that with presidents and prime ministers. So firstly, optimism isn't a belief that everything is right. Optimism is realistic. We know that bad things are happening, but if you persist, if you keep going, things will work out in the end. And if they haven't worked out, it's probably not the end. So the first habit of the optimist that we talk about is just smiling. You know, smile at yourself, smile at a stranger. I got a lovely message from a guy who's stuck in New South Wales. His family's in Victoria. He's in a new job. He's living in a new town. He's living in a new house. And he picked up this habit of smiling at strangers. And of course, he's in New South Wales, so you don't have to wear a mask in the country. He has created a new community just by walking around and smiling and saying hello to people. You know, and he's just lifted that community, and then laughing. You know, I did an event the other day for some teenagers, and I confessed that I'm not good at telling 15-year-old jokes. So I said, let's just laugh. Laugh. And, you know, because I could see all of them on the screen, and, you know, we had nearly 250 people there. And once I started laughing, they started laughing. But of course, better to tell a real joke. And then the real trick I've used in prison. I actually had a radio announcer in New Zealand the other day say he had adopted this. He called it plagiarizing. And I said, no, it's not plagiarizing. I gave it to you to use. Do you know when you ask someone in Australia, how are you? What answer do you get, Tanya?
I'm okay.
Oh, that's about 20%. Most people answer not bad or not too bad, which is a wasted question and a wasted answer. Do I really want a double negative? So I say to people, instead of saying, how are you? Say something like, what's the best thing happening in your day? As you greeted me, you said, what's been good in my day? Whatever words come normal to the person listening, but just bias the conversation to the positive. Listen for the negative, but bias it to the positive. So say, yeah, hi, you know, Jill, hi, Tony. What's the best thing in your day so far? Or something like that. And you know, they'll stop because they've never been asked that question before. And you'll have a positive conversation. And at the other end, you know, in Australia, if you say good, fantastic, everything's great, it doesn't sound authentic because most people are used to not bad or not too bad. So I say, someone says to you, how are you? Pause. Oh, look, I had this fantastic interview today from Tanya. Or, you know, God, I had a really good avocado sandwich. Or, you know, I went for a beautiful walk. But just 3 or 4 words that are going to invite the next question. So for everyone watching this, try this as the experiment. You'll get a refund on watching this interview if it doesn't work. Instead of saying, how are you? What's the best thing happening? And instead of answering good, terrific, or not too bad, just a little answer on something that brought you joy and happiness.
Fantastic. I love it. And it really puts people in that positive set of mind. And I think, we have a lot of story toppers that are around, and everyone's trying to tell a better story than the person they're speaking to. And, if you start with a negative story, then somebody's going to try and top it, and down you go. Whereas if you start with something good that's happened, you can bet that the person who's responding to that will sort of think of, what can I better, what better story and what more exciting story can I tell? So I love that. I'm definitely going to use that. Thank you, Victor.
But you're spot on with this topping stories. How often have you been to places where, actually, I tell you, my pet hate in any boardroom meeting or the like is the chairman or chairwoman or chair saying, "What's keeping you awake at night?" Now, of course, in my case, because I'm an optimist, nothing keeps me awake at night. I hit the pillow and I'm asleep.
Me too.
So it's such a negative question. Instead of saying to the people around the table, what's making you optimistic? What are the opportunities? What are you seeing that the good things around? And there's sort of, you often hear teenagers now, mum or dad, what was the worst restaurant you ever went to? Or what was the worst flight you ever went on? And of course, there's funny stories. I mean, I've flown in the old Soviet Union on Aeroflot and Air Uzbek. And I mean, I've had some bad flights, but so if I turn my mind to it, I can turn my mind to it. But I'd rather tell the story of, going swimming in a glacial river in the Himalayas or something, rather than how bad the airline was in getting there.
Yeah. It's interesting that you're saying that, because one of the things that I do is I help people to live a limitless life. And the question I always say to them is, what do you want? Where do you want to go? What do you want out of life? And they proceed to tell me what they don't want. And I said, well, if you keep telling me what you don't want, what you're doing is you keep recreating that in your life. Whereas if you focus on what you do want, it's almost like you're giving yourself a destination of where you want to go. So do you want to put energy into the positivity and the positive place of where you want to go, or do you want to keep energizing what you don't want in your life? And it's very interesting to watch how difficult that is for people to reframe that, and think about what I do want in life rather than what I don't want, that double negative of what you were talking about before.
And that self-love is so important. I just last week I recorded a compassion meditation for a very large international conference. Hard-headed commercial people. The feedback I got, people were seeking out my email and my LinkedIn and the like to say, I loved that compassion meditation. But I will share a story with you. Last year, I gave a speech at an Asia Pacific conference, and I talked about the benefits of meditation. And the organizers said, oh, look, you're staying the night. Would you do a meditation for the start of day 2? And I said, sure. And we set it half an hour before the start of the program, and we let people know during the afternoon to be on. We expected 10, 20 of the 140 people to come. Well, no, we had 120.
Wow.
And what was interesting was, the compassion meditation, send, thoughts of healing and love and happiness, and to people you love, to people you don't like so much, to someone who's done you wrong. Do you know the interesting, strongest reaction was when I asked them to love themselves? The most difficult thing was to actually send themselves loving greetings, wish themselves health. And so it comes to your question, you see, what do you want to do rather than what don't you want to do? It's sometimes the most difficult question, because it needs to be self-love. And one of the funny things I do in my speeches is I often get people to get up and shout out, the leader looks like the person in my mirror, right? So it's not someone else who's at fault. I'm the leader. And then I get them to look at the person next to them and say, the leader looks like the person in your mirror. And then I say to the girls, get some red lipstick, and on the mirror you first look at in the morning, the leader looks like the person in my mirror. And to the boys, well, if you don't use red lipstick yourself, borrow it from someone you love. And again, on your mirror in the morning, the leader looks like the person in my mirror. And it really is an amazing change of mindset for most people, because most people, particularly in Australia, where leadership has a bad rap. You know, America, everyone's doing a leadership course. In Australia, we joke about leaders. It's a big change of mindset to say, I am the leader. And as you're teaching, Tanya, I am the leader of my own life.
Yeah. And we do get to choose. We get the choice, that power of choice all the time. Are we going to look at something in a positive frame or in a negative frame? And I think particularly with everything that's going on, it's really important for people to keep remembering that it's up to them, that they get to choose what goes on, you know. So it's really important. And Victor, just tell us quickly a little bit about what people will be experiencing if they attend your workshop at the Vitality Festival.
Now, depending on the numbers, if there were only 20 of us, I would take them through the why of optimism. So just a little bit of the science that's really been in the last 5 to 10 years. So it's before everyone went to university, well, after everyone's gone to university. So a bit of the science, a bit of the new knowledge on optimism, then a bit of the how. You know, I won't go through the 14 habits of the optimist. We'll go through the 5 or 6 as we've gone through today. And then the most important part of the exercise is to ask each and every one attending what makes you optimistic. And we actually go around the circle. Now, if there's more than 20, let's say, and I've done my biggest ever exercise was 600 people.
Wow.
We'll break up into sixes for 6 minutes and people will share it. And then we'll come back together and some of the more forward people will express, you know, their optimism, but we'll get everyone to use the Zoom chat group to share. We may use Slido or something. One of the funniest things I ever did was a conference where a group of people from New Zealand manipulated Slido, and the biggest bubble for optimism was gin. The funny thing was they invited me then to come to New Zealand and give a speech. And what was the gift at the end of the speech?
Gin.
3 beautiful crafted bottles of gin, which they'd relabeled as optimism. So we'll have a lot of fun. So the main thing is that people come ready to answer that question themselves, what makes them optimistic. We'll do a little bit of science. We'll talk about laughter and smiles and better greetings. And most importantly, we'll break up into groups so that people hear from each other what makes them optimistic, and they will be inspired. So I've done it with presidents, prime ministers, and women digging ditches in a village in India. And the diversity of answer, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's life experience, whether it's mindset. But most importantly, Tanya, as I think you really want at this time of stress and difficulty and fear, as you said, fear and anxiety, is we want to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of lightness, a little bit of letting off some steam. And it works whether you're 90 or 9. So we'll have a lot of fun. And through you, it's through your wonderful organisation and leadership. And I pay tribute to you and your team. It is wonderful.
Thank you so much, Victor. And I just feel much better even just talking to you. It's just amazing how good you feel when you're talking to somebody who is optimistic, who's got a beautiful smile like you, and is talking about positive things. So I can't recommend to everybody enough. Please come along and join up to the Vitality Festival. Victor and so many other more really amazing people will be talking to you about your health, about your well-being, inspiring you and giving you really easy to use tools that you can take to help pave the way out of where you are right now. And it's things that you can continue to use forever in your life. So again, thank you, Victor. We wish you all the best and abundance of optimism to you. And thank you for talking to us today.
Abundance in every part of your life, Tanya. You give out so much to other people. You deserve it yourself.
Thank you.